Hellos and welcomes back everyone, AnthWolf here with more Pillars of Eternity. At the end of part 99, the part prior to the last video. Yes, that makes sense. We were told Thaos had entered a secret passageway to enter an ancient and probably ruined city. I think it was called Sun and Shadow. Let us find out. Sun and Shadow, yes, an ancient Engwithan location. We've been told of another way to reach him, but we have to pass through an ancient court, and the only way to survive the passageway is to have the gods on our side. And the delemgan here told us to enter the tower and see if we can commune with said gods and see if they will support us. So apparently it's best to try and talk to them when they group together, and to be polite. Understandably so. Well, this is awkward. Let's quick save. Looks like there's some scrolls here. Like bookshelves? There you go. The Book of the Hunt, Daily Affirmations of Focus and Efficiency, excerpts from the Sermon of Struggle, the Midwife's Memoirs, I think we've read that before, the Queen that was and still is. So this is probably knowledge about the different gods. The Final Journal of Jonas? What the hell is that doing here? Oh, it's about Skane's effigy. The Missives of the Hand Occult. The Many Faces of Barath. 10 Years of Dawn. The Selected Correspondences of Giftbringer Iden. And the Ematic God of Cold. We could probably read these and learn about the gods, and to be honest, we probably should. Otherwise they could ask us questions about themselves that we're meant to answer, and I won't know how to respond to them. Before we do that though, I totally forgot that Alof wants to speak to us, so let's do that.
If those delemgan are right, you and I are stuck with our awakenings. Not quite the news I was hoping for.
I am concerned about you, Alof. How are you taking this?
Oh, the knowledge that a barely civilized bumpkin will share my mind and body for the rest of my life? That's kind of you to ask. I'd always believed that Isselmere was an ailment I could cure myself of one day. But now, to think she'll be around forever.
You've been awakened for decades now, Alof, or so you told me. Do you really think anything would change?
I suppose not, but hope is an unchaste mistress.
On the bright side, we've got plenty of time to figure out how to deal with her. Like it or not, she is a part of you, and she could be a source of strength if you learn to work with her.
It's strange. I've lived with her most of my life, and I've always seen her as an adversary. It should have occurred to me the day she stood up to my father. But there's something about being too close to a situation to see it clearly. It will be a relief to stop fighting her.
Even as he says it, something struggles within him. The muscles of Alof's face twitch and his skin quivers. His eyes roll back in his skull, exposing slivers of white. Sweat beads and glistens on his forehead. After several seconds, he sighs and looks back at you. That wasn't as difficult as I expected. I think, deep down, I'd always hoped to find a solution elsewhere. When I was a child, I always thought my mother would come home with a mysterious cure, or that my father, without knowing it, would somehow send her away just as he'd called her forth. I can't pretend that I didn't spend years of my arcane training hoping that one of my instructors would have the answers somewhere in his grimoire. When I joined the Leaden Key, which I keep forgetting about, Alof, I'm watching you, I hoped and believed that with enough loyal service, I'd gain the ear of someone in the organisation who could help me. Even when I met you and realised your unique talents, I hoped that you might be able to reach into my soul the way I've seen you do with so many others. I'd been looking for someone else to solve my problem, and now I realise I've got to face it on my own. I suppose that's how it's supposed to be. You search for answers elsewhere and find them in yourself.
That's a charming way to think of things. And not an unpleasant one either. That reminds me of something else the delemgan said. About the gods not being real.
I really don't know what they meant.
It's just... I can't help but worry at the state we'd be in if that was somehow true. If there were no power guiding us in this life and shepherding us to the next.
I'm sure we'd find our way on our own.
I hope you're right.
We should get moving.
How may I help?
So, we kind of hopefully assisted Alof put his mind at ease. In the same instance, I'd forgotten that the delemgan spoke about the gods not being real, and then instructed us to speak to the gods. Yeah, that confuses me. Maybe it's something to do with faith and just having faith.
Right.
What is this? A luminescent Adra shard. I'll take it. Oh, hi! I didn't realise that this was actually usable. Shattered and charred stone blocks the passage into sun and shadow. Oh, so that's the passageway that that someone blocked behind him. So I'm guessing, yeah, this is what we need to activate.
Huh?
I've never seen anything like this. Almost beats the Southern Lights.
It seems like the gods have come to commune with us. They seem to be more gathered over here.
Sure.
Oh. Galawain, Magrin, Abaddon, Hylia, Barath, Skane, Ondra, Rumgrand. Seems these two are the ones we want to speak to more often than not then. Well, Magrin we know through Durin, so let us see what the gods have to say to us. Who is this god? And who is this god? I'm guessing nothing happens when you approach Wodika's shrine. And this is Skane? A piercing ring fills your ears as you near Whale Shrine. Was the Shrine of Whale the shrine we went to in Gilded Vale? I think it may have been. Well, Wodika didn't want to speak to us. Surprising that Skane does. Sorry, just adjusting my position again. We might as well talk to all the gods that we can and see what they have to say. But let us begin. So this is Galawain, Abaddon and Magrin. Before the shrine sits the constellation of a snarling hound, fangs bared. Let us pray to Galawain, who I think is the hunter's god, if not more things, of course. Uh-oh. You kneel before the shrine and prepare to recite the ritual words. That's Skane. Wodika. Survival begins with strength from within. The air around you stirs, and a gust of warm wind blows across the back of your neck. You catch the faintest smell of wet earth. As you kneel in front of the shrine, you feel yourself pushed forward. You catch yourself on your hands and knees, feeling warm, damp ground beneath them. Looking around, you find yourself touched in a clearing in the middle of the woods. Crouched, not touched. The smell of dirt hangs heavy in the air. Behind you is a darkened room filled with candlelit shrines. Ahead of you, you hear the howl of some kind of hound. You feel certain this is a vision, but the hairs on the nape of your neck still rise. We've seen this in our dreams. Let us howl back. The beast bays in response, its voice high and clear. The thick undergrowth shivers with movement, and heavy paws pound the wet grass. You're not certain if the creature is hunting or leading you, but you instinctively give chase. As you tumble through drew-spacked bushes and clawing brambles, each stride feels longer than the last. You draw lungfuls of crisp, clean air, and feel your energy renewed. The rhythm of your stride and the thumping of the beast's paws drive the blood thrumming into your ears. You speed ahead, following the hound's cries, when a split-finger pine crashes to the ground in front of you. A massive bear lunges into the gap and roars. It catches sight of you. You turn and race in the opposite direction, leaping over the fallen tree trunk. Pine cones crunch overfoot, and the bear lumbers after you. Its hot breath washes over the back of your neck, filling your nose with a rank odour of slaughter. You see a clearing just past a thicket of broadleaves and sprint towards it. As you break through the foliage, you see a massive lioness curled up in the clearing in front of you. With a last burst of energy, you divert your momentum and hurl yourself into the bushes. Any second now, you expect to feel the bear fall upon you, but a furious roar on the other side of the clearing draws your attention. The bear has stopped at the tree line. It swipes the empty air with claws large enough to rend armour, but it does not advance. The lioness, for her part, twists her body into a tight coil. She growls, her ears pressed against her head, but she makes no move to attack the intruder. Sigourney murmurs to you under her breath. At this point I've hunted all over the world, and I've never seen predators like these. You back deeper into the foliage, keeping your eyes on the two mighty predators. As you crawl backwards, the heel of your hand brushes something furred. A warm sigh grazes your cheek. You freeze in place, slowly turning your head to see what waits behind you. Two amber eyes shine in the darkness. If I'm dying here, at least I was with my friends. Endurance. The eyes meet your gaze briefly, then turn to the standoff in the clearing. The hound behind you yawns, fangs flashing. When you turn back, the lion and bear have disappeared. In their place is a stone wolf's maw, gaping wide enough to swallow you whole. Beyond it is the outline of a temple, towering but indistinct. Blood must feed the maw, Watcher. See that a true champion reigns. Travel to the stone maw. The old queen and the new king. Two mighty hunters, a lioness and a bear, wait in deadlock, They face off but do not fight. It falls to me to resolve this stale conflict one way or another. Galawain showed me a vision. He also revealed a cave shaped like a wolf's maw in an area that looks like a temple district. I can probably learn more there. A cape shaved in a wolf's maw in an area that looks like a temple district. Where is that?
Yeah.
Well, we were lucky once. I'm going to drop another big save. Just in case I did that wrong. I don't think I did. But you never know. Can we be lucky a second time, or should we actually read some of the books? Ah, screw it. Let us go. Oh, actually, we don't know anything about Rimgrand. The Amatic God of Cold. Young students are often confused by Baraf and Rimgrand's seemingly overlapping roles in holding dominion over death. Wonderful. Baraf oversees the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Rimgrand oversees the cold, destructive act of death itself. The difference is often difficult for novices to appreciate until they've lost a loved one and endured the absence for a time. It is Baraf that determines we will reborn just as certainly as we will die, but Rimgrand is the executioner's axe, and Rimgrand shows us that all life ends in stillness. I need only show them the symbol of Rimgrand, the bone-white Orlok skull found carved within the most ancient of Engwithan ruins. It is a symbol of death and doom in every culture. Any child with 4 winters under his belt need no introduction to the ancient symbol. Rimgrand embodies not just death, but all manifestations of collapse, be it a famine, plague, or simple bad luck. Rimgrand is a primal god, silent and inscrutable as death itself. He makes himself known with his passing, not by proclamation. There are innumerable stories of the god's terrifying passage through the lands of Aurora. When the beast of winter stirs, bitter winds and beastly howling follow the creature's every move. Wherever the beast plants a hoof, all life withers into dust. The faithful of Rimgrand insist that even another god's life can end in stillness. They claim the other gods must flee from the beast of winter's mastery over death. But we know not if this boast holds true. Though the beast of winter is shrouded in snowy clouds, those who have seen the shaggy white monster claim that the souls of the fallen can be seen clinging, or perhaps frozen to the beast's fur. The dwarfs of the boreal south have numerous stories that tell of a similar plot. A brush hero seeks out the beast of winter to rescue the souls trapped in its fur. These tales never end well, for even if the hero saves his beloved soul, the hero dies in the process. For it is not a proper tale of Rimgrand unless the hero's life ends in stillness. Let us pray to you then. You kneel before the shrine and prepare to recite the ritual words. All life ends in stillness, or so you say. You feel a sudden gust of cold air, as if the shrine were bursting into wintry life. The frigid wind cuts through you like a sharpened blade, and darkness encroaches upon the edges of your sight. You kneel and close your eyes. As you pray, the blackness fades to white, and a howling wind fills your ears. The vision that slowly resolves itself is of a broad frozen plain. You see a procession of elves in the distance. periodically fading into and emerging from the whiteness. They trudge over snowbanks, their heads down against the driving winds. I know this place. This is the white that rends. As they trek past you, one man bundled in furs turns his head. You headed for Noonfrost and the frost-hewn breach too? Before you can answer, he's lumbered ahead. You follow the caravan, and in a couple of minutes you come to a wall of ice. It disappears into the pale emptiness overhead and stretches as far as you can see in either direction. The elves stop in front of a mirror-smooth section that's framed like a temple door. It seems somehow thinner than the rest of the wall. You can't see what's on the other side, but a debilitating cold emanates from within. The elves pull pickaxes and shovels from their sealskin packs and begin hacking at the smooth ice, their implements flying through the air in swift, shining arcs. Though they throw their bodies into their labour, not one of them so much as scratches the polished ice, yet with each blow, something bellows in the distance. Whatever it is, it's huge and angry, and it's coming our way. Hey, you might want to hold off on that. The elves hack away, seemingly oblivious to the furious loud lolling and to the tremors under your feet. The snow has risen to your knees. Your legs feel frozen in the drift. Let us wait. You watch as the elves continue to work at the ice. They pay no heed to the rumbling roar or the numbing wind. Their movements, however, gradually slow. They labour at the ice with arduously sluggish movements until they finally freeze in place, some mid-swing and others preparing for the next blow. You touch the nearest elf to you, and he crumbles into a mound of snow. A final gale blows past, scattering the remains of the elves in a chaotic flurry. You notice a single spiderweb crack in the smooth barrier. It's the only thing that mars the perfect surface of the ice. Whatever's on the other side of the strange doorway, you feel it tugging at you. Only when you look back and see the parallel gashes trailing behind your legs in the snow, do you realize how strong its pull is.
My end comes to all things in time. Seal the frost-hewn breach and instruct the pilgrims in the patience of Remergond.
The second one sounds or seems foolish. But let us do it anyway. Let us try to plug the hole with our finger. You stick your finger into the hole and you feel a stinging cold. You yank your hand back, but the finger snaps off and remains wedged in the crack. A hoary rime instantly grows over the smooth surface of this frozen doorway, fusing it with the rest of the wall. A crystal of ice grows from your frozen stub. As you examine it, the vision around you fades and your finger rises from the stump. But a shard of unmelted ice remains in your palm. Oh. Fine Noonfrost and Twin Elms. And we gained a key item. Oh, nope. A glowing ice shard. Rimgran gave you this jagged ice crystal as you prayed to him at Teir Evron. It's supposed to control the frost-hewn breach in Noonfrost. The shard grows with cold blue light and hasn't melted at all since you last saw it. Rimgrand showed me a vision of a gate, the frost-hewn breach, and the pale elves trying to open it. In the vision, the elves crumbled in the snow, and I sealed the gate with an ice crystal I still had when the waking dream ended. The frost-hewn breach appeared to be part of a temple called Noonfrost. If I can find Rimgrand's place of worship in Twin Elms, I may also find the meaning behind the vision. The locals may know something about this place. Oh well, that one's more possible to achieve. Now, we could pray. Could we still pray to these? Let's try this again. No.
Right.
We have Baraf and Hylia. The many faces of Baraf. Let's take that one. That's Whale. The Book of the Hunt, of course. Abaddon, no. Magrin. The Midwife's Memoirs. I think we've tried to read this before. It's worth trying once again, though, just to pray to these other two shrines as well. So this is Hylia's. Oh, and the book has disappeared. My mother lived every note of life's song. Bringing me into this world was her last verse. For this my father scorned me and abandoned me. For this very same fact, my town's midwife, an adherent of Hylia, raised me as her own. When I came of age, I learned that Hylia visits us on the screams of women in childbirth, and when a woman dies giving life to her child, her soul is carried away and reborn as an avian attendant of Hylia's court. Through the miracle of the Queen of Birds, my mother has been with me, watching over me my whole life. I wear the fetish charms of the Cloud Singer, the bird I dreamt my mother became. My feathery trinkets look gaudy and unbecoming, but it is a signal fire to women in need that I am a trained midwife, blessed by Hylia, and living every note of life's song. The Queen of Birds wills us to shepherd new life into the world, and not, as the other gods so often desire, to end it. A follower of Magrin once mocked my faith, saying I worship paintbrushes and birds, piddling things beneath the gods. I do not resent the other gods and the brutal necessities they must oversee, but it is not language, love, the arts and creativity that which separates us from simple beasts. Hylia allows us to rise above our savage feral selves. I am often amused that upon seeing our holy aviaries, visitors frequently asked, "This is nice, but where is the real Temple of Hylia?" Perhaps they think hallowed ground requires oppressive stoneworks and ceilings that hide the sky. They do not realize the Bird Queen stands not on ceremony. She makes herself manifest in the music of birds, and in beauty of the ubiquitous open sky. Hylia prefers the worship of two children singing over 1,000 petitioners silently praying for victory. The Sky Mother asks so little of us, and yet so much. We are charged to live every note of life's song. It surprises me how many fail to embrace this divine calling. Right. So we've learned a little more about Hylia now. Let us pray. The shrine sits before a bright constellation, the stars forming the oval shape of an egg. A pair of wings sprout from the egg, stretching out to either side. As you step before the shrine, you prepare to recite the ritual words. Live every note of life's song. Your words seem to ring in the air, your voice rendered melodic and lilting by some unseen art. You shut your eyes to pray. As you wait in darkness, the world around you changes. You feel sunlight bright and warm on your face. A light breeze carries music to your ears. As vivid as these sensations feel, you somehow know they are not real. You look around and find yourself standing in an open-air temple built on a mountain summit. It's filled with elves, orlans, and all sorts of other kith. Ringing the entire scene is a fringe of trees, their verdant branches filled with birds of all different colours, shapes and sizes. A paradise of those who would waste their lives exploring the meaningless while corrupting the meaning of the real world. Oh, to set these trees ablaze, Watcher. Everyone is singularly absorbed in a particular pursuit. An Orlan sits with a canvas, a paintbrush in his hand and jars of green, blue and yellow pigment at his feet. An elf and an Ormona standing to the side are locked in conversation, their expressions dancing with delight. Still others scribble stanzas of poetry or crude sketches on sheets of paper, losing themselves in the delicate minutiae of lines and syllables. You feel the breeze again, and two elves basking in the sunlight shiver. The largest group gathers in the middle of the temple. They sing a lush, chaotic harmony composed of several complementary melodies. Others drift towards the singers in ones and twos, as if buffeted by a gust of wind or a phrase of the song. A ripple passes through the trees. You think it's the wind, but the chirping changes to screeching. Hundreds of birds take to the skies, all headed in one direction, away. Something must be coming. The devotees glance at the trees, just barely distracted from their activities. But the wind picks up, scattering their pages of poetry and art and ripping the songs from their lips. They look skyward and you follow their gaze. A dark shape blots out the sun. You can't tell what it is, but it unfolds and expands. It seems to fill the sky. The wind roars over the summit. That explains the birds. Before you can flee, a shadow falls over the temple. It begins as a stain in the corner and spreads, blotting out the flagstones. It reaches the nearest kith, a black-furred Orlan. The darkness swallows her, only leaving a puff of smoke in her place. The two elves that you saw earlier, a man and a woman, flee. You get a brief image of them huddled in the shadow of a mountain. They seem to see you, and they reach out, calling silently after you. The others, however, seem frozen. As the shadow advances, they seem likewise to vanish one by one. The driving gale scatters their ashes and the charred remains of their creations. Songs of joy turn to screams of agony. What purpose, what lesson could possibly lie behind such destruction? You look up again at the source of the shadow, but the eclipsed sun forms a blinding corona around the thing. You can't make out any details. You can, however, feel heat. Restore my temple. You look down and find yourself standing next to Hylia's shrine in Teir Evron. Your pulse still races and your skin is damp with sweat from this strange encounter. A menace roosts in Hylia's temple, and it has scattered her worshippers. I've been tasked with facing this threat. In the mountains above Twin Elms, something sinister haunts Hylia's temple. I've been asked to confront this tower and putting an end to it. In the goddess's vision, I saw her followers terrorized and struck down by a terrible menace. Presumably removing that threat could earn me her favour. The vision showed me a male and female elf who fled the mountaintop. Last I saw, they were hiding in a ring of stones in the ruin of an older temple in Twin Elms. If there's a district in the city with other temples, I may be able to find the elves there. and they could show me the way to Hylia's temple. Oh, a district of other temples. That's similar to what we told here. We were asked to find a district of temples. That could be talking about Old Song, which we haven't visited yet. In fact, all three of these tell me about searching in Twin Elms itself. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, Balmung, you sound excited, I know. One last save. And we'll keep this video going. I didn't realise how long it would be, but let us read the final book. The many... Oh, no, it's not the one I was looking for. I think I already have it in my possession. The Many Faces of Baraf. Ah, there it is. How fitting that we know the god of cycles, doorways, mortality, and the inevitability as Baraf, while the Valalians know the very same god as Serono. For if nothing else, Baraf teaches us that duality exists in all things. There is life and death in life. Embrace this duality, and you will honour Baraf. In the ruins of Irgland faith, Baraf is depicted as in the form of two skeletal figures, one male and one female, Beren and Anku, literally life and death and life in the Glenforthern tongue. Male and female, inside and outside, life and death. We often think of Baraf as imagining two sides of the coin and two endpoints of a journey. It is said that Baraf has the most petitioners of every god, and this is likely true. Who amongst us has not prayed for the cycle to hiccup? Who has not, in a moment of sadness, yelled at Baraf to make an exception of our fallen loved ones? Baraf may not rescue our loved ones, but it answers our prayers in its own divine way. Baraf is the god that makes life end in death, and it is also the god that makes death end in life. Baraf, Serono, Benin, Anku, whichever of the many names you prefer to use, deserves our prayers, for it has given us the promise of life's eternal renewal. I see. In the glittering stars and the nearby constellations, you see the grim shape of a skull. Its jaws are opened wide as if frozen in a silent scream. You kneel before the shrine and prepare to recite the ritual words. There is life and death in life. There is a rippling shift in the air around you, as if some unfelt wind has changed, bringing unexpected warmth. You feel the particular weight of an unseen presence, and of eyes upon you. You kneel and pray to Baraf. Even while your eyes are closed, you see a road that seems to stretch on forever. The stars wheel overhead in a clockwork rotation of constellations, disappearing over the horizon to your left only to rise on your right. You try to make out the details on either side of the road, but your eyes can't seem to focus. One moment you think you see a meadow blanketed with mist, and another sheer canyon walls. For just an instant, you even see waves lapping at the edges of the road. Were you to step onto the shifting landscape, you feel certain you would only end up back on the road. You know this is a vision, but the packed dirt feels firm beneath your feet, and the night air cool upon your face. You are walking. Your feet seem to carry you forward of their own accord. Something looms ahead of you. As you get closer, you see two stone figures that look strangely familiar. Beren and Anku, two of the oldest representations of Baraf. You remember the door of Clearban Rilag, and the two figures carved into the mountain next to it. One looks vaguely male, and the other vaguely female, Only a thin layer of flesh covers their skeletal bodies, which twist to face the doorway between them. The doorway, however, is not what you saw in the ruins. It's a skull, gaping and jawless, and as you look on, its open mouth seems to grow. The arms of the two stone sculptures are swept towards the mouth, inviting you in. Sure, we'll take the plunge. Let us enter the skull's mouth. The road continues through the moor to another shifting landscape surrounded by stars. As you pass through it, you see an identical doorway in the distance. A dwarven man stands near it, unmoving. You turn to look behind you, only to see the skull gate you just passed facing you. An elven woman waits on the road. Like the dwarf, she stands still. Let us continue to the dwarven man. You continue down the road toward him. He looks up as you approach, but you can't tell if he's looking at you or through you. The dwarf's face is smooth but flaccid, as if the flesh has detached from the muscles underneath. As you look on, his face begins to change. Wrinkles crack at the corners of his eyes. His mouth sinks, carving deep lines from his nose to the corners of his lips. His jowls sag, and the loose flesh hangs like dough. He raises his cupped hands. They're covered in blood. He lifts them to his face and smears himself, from his newly ceased forehead to the rattles of his neck. As he massages the dark sticky fluid into his skin, the flesh wrinkles disappear, the hanging folds recede, and his flesh tightens as if re-adhering to his skull. He lifts his head, and this time you know he's looking at you. His renewed face looks like a mask, artificially smooth and still. Behind it, his black eyes are true hungry pits, yawning like the empty mouths of skulls. Come, make your sacrifice to the Ifnik Null. His body blocks the path, and he extends a bloody hand towards you. I've come this far. I'm not going to stop. Let us take his hand. You grab his hand, but his skin gives too easily under your grip. As you try to pull away, you hear a noise like dried canvas tearing. His skin splits, following a long seam that begins at his arm and stretches the length of his body. Blood gushes forth in such quantities you can't imagine there was ever anything else in him. Sure enough, as the dwarf empties of blood, he collapses like a desiccated husk. The blood in the path gleams with 1,000 souls worth of essence. The essence evaporates, trailing shining filaments into the night sky. Only now that he is dead can you continue forward. The blood pools around your feet, and you look up to see the elven woman waiting further down the road. You start towards her. There's something unnatural about the way she stands. She is too still. When you get closer, you see her legs taper into a slender trunk, and in place of her feet are gnarled twisting roots. She lifts her face to an invisible sun. Her long golden hair is the colour of autumn leaves, and as you look more closely, you realise her head is actually covered with tendrils and vines sprouting brilliant yellow leaves. Each glimmers with the essence of an entire soul. She gives you a beatific smile. As you look on, the leaves slowly fall from her head and settle at her roots. They melt into the path beneath her, and almost immediately new leaves sprout in the place of the old. She reaches toward you, still smiling, as roots spring from her fingertips. Her outstretched arms bar the path. Come. Graft your soul to the golden grove. Sure, we'll take your hand as well. Her roots twine around your fingers, and as they do, they grow rigid and cold. Her outstretched arm petrifies, and as a rough stone bark overtakes her flesh, she can only look on in horror. You break away from her brittle grasp. Her feet are rooted in place, but she twists and writhes as if trying to flee her own dying limb. The petrification reaches her shoulder and spreads down her body, freezing it in a painful arc. It creeps up her neck, and she throws her face skyward like a drowning swimmer. The greyness covers her face, freezing her gasp in stone. Now that she is still and lifeless, you can continue on past her. Only the golden leaves of her head remain untouched, and as you watch they fall one by one onto the path below. They shrivel as the simmering essence fades from them. A voice echoes from the road, barely more than a whisper on the breeze. Return them to the wheel. You lift your gaze and see the skull gate ahead of you on the path. The candles of Teir Evron wink through its open mouth. One of them is the Druid, the one we saw sacrifice that the elf. The other is probably the leader of the Golden Grove, who I don't believe we spoke to. But apparently her methods are very similar to the Archdruids. Bereft tires of mortals evading the natural cycle of death and rebirth. He showed me two individuals in particular, a dwarven man and elven woman, who have extended their lives for centuries. Ending their lives would no doubt please Bereft. Okay then. Well, those are the 4 shrines that we were able to activate. Of course, there were 2 others that we could not actually touch due to maybe our alignment, maybe the choices were made in the game. I don't know. But no, this videos went on quite long. My voice, as you can probably tell, is giving out slightly through all that event. We've spent more than 45 minutes in this one room alone, but I've liked it. I like this whole praying to the gods chapter, I suppose. Chapter. It's a video. Yeah, I'm going to start rambling shortly because I'm tired. But I will end this video now. Thank you very much if you've gotten this far. I hope you've enjoyed that as well. I'd be certainly interested to see what the other gods would have to say to someone. But when we come back, we'll look at these 4 quests we've been given. It seems the gods want something from me. To earn favour, I have to complete the tasks given to me in the visions. And obviously we know about these. They all seem to be here in Twin Elms. It seems like 3 of them are somewhere here in Old Song. And one of them is in the Temple of Hylia. Ah. Well, we were going to travel through Northworld anyway. Obviously we can do this one here. Hylia's Temple. Noonfrost is a place, it used to be part of a temple called Noonfrost. And we need to go to a temple district to find out where this stone moor is. Find a cave shaped like a wolf's maw. And end a stalemate between the lioness and the bear. But yeah, we'll do that next time. Probably in the next session I will end this session here. It's 3 parts long, but we've had a lot of exposition here, and as I say, I am starting to get a bit wearied. So yeah, after work tomorrow I'll come back and continue Pillars of Eternity. As always, this has been AnthWolf. Feel free to comment below if you so desire. We've done a fair bit this video, and I will see you for more in the future. So until then, take care. Bye bye now.